I was stuck making the same amount of money no matter what I did for 8 years of my life. And I have just been rewarded with my bronze pin, which now solidifies me as the top 1% of Bob Proctor's consultants. Bob really did change my life. Now, I want to show you how I've managed to do that and also increase my income from £15,000 a year to over £35,000 a month. But I want to tell you a bit about my story because I was not brought up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I grew up in a place in Manchester called Openshaw. Now, if you're from America, this place would be called the Projects. In the UK, we call it a council estate. And I mean, no one had money. Most of the people around me was smoking or selling drugs. So that's exactly what I did. Now, I was quite misunderstood, to say the least, when I was growing up. I just did not get along in school. I was naughty. I was always getting kicked out. And it got to the point when I was 13 years old, the high school that I went to, Wright Robinson, they just said, we can't have you here anymore. So from 13, I have not been to a school. Now, from the ages of 13 till about 18, I was a hustler because everyone around me was doing it. So to me, that was the normal. So I grew up hustling, getting up to no good, got arrested quite a few times. And it wasn't until I met the mother of my children and I started going to her area and I seen her mum working, I seen her dad working, that I thought, well, hang on a minute. Maybe there's more to life than I realized. And at that point, I moved away from the streets and I got into modeling. But as I got into modeling, I came upon a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Now, I started reading and started educating myself, but this just cheesed me off more because I was reading, I was getting all of this information, and I just couldn't make any money as a model. I mean, I was making a little bit, but if we averaged it out over a year, it was about £15,000. At this point, though, I was still heavily smoking cannabis, smoking weed. Now, during the first lockdown, during COVID-19, the first one, my ex-partner started seeing that I was acting a bit strange. I wasn't sleeping. I shaved my head bald. And I don't know. I can't really remember it that much, but weird things must have been coming out of my mouth. Now I know what was happening is I was going through a psychotic episode and it was cannabis induced. Now it got to the point where I would not sleep. I was very paranoid to the point where the ambulance came out to see me. And what happens in the UK is if you don't volunteer to go in and get help, they can take it out of your hands and they can section you. That's exactly what they did. And for the next 21 days, I spent that in a mental institution. They dosed me up on drugs. I had to sit down and speak with people. It's crazy when I think about it as well because I remember everything from them times. And in my mind, I really thought I was okay. And now I know that's what usually happens when you're going through a psychotic episode. I mean, you're the one that's okay. Everyone else is the people that are crazy. Now, I got out of hospital around 4, 5 years ago, and I did the right things. And thankfully, I've never relapsed. I've never had to go back to hospital. Now, when I open up to people and I tell them what happened to me, a lot of people say, I'm so sorry that that happened to you. And I'm like, well, don't. Because that really, really changed me. I started getting into the gym. I never went back to the cannabis again. I changed my circle. And I also took the help that they provided. So I was in regular contact with my doctor. I had a support worker called Rob, who was an amazing man. And then I started getting fascinated with the mind. I really wanted to know how the mind worked because I knew it was my fault and nobody else's why I got sectioned, why I got put in hospital. Now, people might say it was the cannabis, it was the lack of sleep, and I agree with that. That definitely didn't help. But I really understood and had the awareness that it was because of the thoughts that I was thinking. Now, when I got out of hospital, I really started to study the mind. And after a while, when I got my noggin back, when I became sane, I went back to the modeling. But the same thing happened. Money wasn't coming in. And I was watching Bob on YouTube. I was reading Think and Grow Rich. And like I said earlier on, this frustrated me more because I felt I was doing all of the right things, but my income didn't change. Yes, I was smarter. Yes, I understood the mind more, but I didn't care about any of that. All I wanted was results. And at that time, I just wanted money to be able to do what I wanted, when I wanted, with who I wanted. And my daughter was probably 2 or 3 at the time. And I had these visions of traveling the world and showing her and exploring. So we got to the point where nothing was changing. And I knew Bob did mentorships, but it just didn't really enter my mind. So one day I found myself on Bob's website and it said, book a free call to find out how we can help. So I put my information in, and a few days later, a guy called Cam, who has become a really good friend of mine now, we had a conversation. And it was a simple conversation. He basically just said, Joel, what's your goal? And I just said, I just want some more money. I've read Think and Grow Rich. I'm listening to Bob, but nothing's changing. And Cam said, well, that's probably because you've not got the right direction. And right now you're studying from your level of awareness, which is programmed to earn £15,000 a year. Cam said, how much do you really want to make? And I said, I would love to make 25,000 a year. And Cam's a no nonsense guy. He basically turned around and said, well, that's a stupid goal. You said you already know how to make 15,000. Why don't you focus on turning your yearly income into a monthly income? And at that point, I didn't believe that was possible. I didn't believe that I could make £15,000 a year. I mean, I imagined it. I thought about it, about being a millionaire and traveling, but deep down, I just didn't think that was possible. Now, Cam said, look, if you do what we tell you to do, things will really start to change really quickly for you. He said, you need to start studying this material from Bob's level of awareness instead of your level of awareness if you're going to change anything. He said, but if you keep doing what you're doing, what's going to change, Joel? And he was so direct with me. And that's how I am with people now because I really respected that. Everyone else used to tiptoe around me. Cam just told me how it was. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're not going to get much more than you've already got. And I thought he was right. Now, just to make you aware as well, there was no thought in my mind at this point in time of working with Bob. I just wanted some money. So Cam told me the price of the mentorship. I didn't have the money. Cam said, you don't need the money until you've made the decision. And I was kind of like, well, what do you mean? He said, well, people really don't know how to make decisions. And all successful people understand the power of making decisions. He said, you don't need the money until you've made the decision that you're going to get guidance and you're going to get on this mentorship. And I said, well, how does that work? Obviously, I've got to have the money. He said, no, you don't. He said, once you make the decision, You flip your mind onto the frequency of the good that you desire, and you will find the money. And I said, okay, I'm in. I didn't pay on the phone there and then because I genuinely didn't have the money. I was broke. Cam said, look, from this point on, you only focus on how you can do this. Do you know within 48 hours, I had the money? And if you're interested in how I got the money, I borrowed it with no idea how I was going to pay it back. So I started on this mentorship. Remember, at this time, my only source of income is the modeling. And Bob was talking about the subconscious mind and how you have to align your frequency with the amount of money that you want. One of the first things he taught me was to get a goal card, write your goal in present tense, and carry it everywhere with you. And I was thinking, why? This is illogical. How does that make sense? And Bob was explaining, when you understand the mind, you understand why it makes sense. Because we become what we think about. If you keep thinking about how broke you are, Joel, then you're going to attract more poverty into your life. He said, you've got to start thinking about what you want. You've got to start thinking prosperity instead of lack and limitation. So I had paid for this mentorship. So I was like, I've got nothing else to do apart from do what this man tells me to do. He's got the results that I want. He seems pretty happy. He's about 80, 85. He's full of energy. So to me, he was healthy. I might as well just do what he tells me to do. Now, fast forward a little bit, I start thinking about money. And because I'm thinking about money, all of these ideas start coming to me. And one night I was sat in bed, visualizing what it would be like to make £15,000 a month. And an idea just flashed into my mind. It was kind of like a hunch or an inspired idea. And this voice came into my mind and it said, go and build an online fitness company that operates all around the world. Another thing that Bob taught me is you don't need to know how to do it. If you knew how to do it, you would have already done it. So I knew I didn't need to know how to do it. I just needed to make the decision that I'm doing it. So I started thinking about this and I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I started reaching out to people. I started watching things on YouTube. How can I become an online coach? I had no training qualifications. I had no experience. Yeah, I went gym myself, but I had no experience with training other people and nutrition and exercises and stuff like that. Within 5.5 months, that online fitness company was making organically, and just me, I had no team, it was just me. I believe I started it in about June or July of 2023. By the 1st of January 2024, the online fitness company was making £18,000 a month. I mean, I was astonished. Now, what I do know now is that the online fitness company was just incidental. It had nothing to do with what industry or business I started. I'd been studying myself and listening to Bob for 6 months straight. And I did everything that man told me to do. Even if I thought it was stupid, I did it. So here I am now making £18,000 a month. And during that time when I first set up the company, I went to Dubai with my friends and I had no money, but I really wanted to go. Now, they all hired Lamborghinis. They got a beautiful villa. I couldn't do that. I just told my friends straight, look, I am not in a position where I can do that. So I hired an Airbnb. It was a shared accommodation. I believe I paid £210 to stay in this Airbnb for 7 days. And I was dissatisfied. I was really uncomfortable with the fact that my friends could travel to Dubai, go and do whatever they wanted, and I couldn't do a thing. I was pissed off. And I made a decision when I was in that Airbnb I'm going to come back to Dubai some point next year. I'm going to bring my daughter. I'm going to bring my son. And we're going to do anything that we want. Now, this was September, maybe a month after I set up the online fitness company that I went to Dubai with my friends. By January, what's that, 3 months later, I was making £18,000 a month. I booked Dubai for March. I took my ex-partner, the mother of my children. I took Esme and I took Elijah to Dubai, and we did whatever we wanted. I mean, we lived it really, really big, and it felt so good. But as I'm in Dubai, I start thinking more about what I would really love to do. Because yes, the fitness company was making money, but I wasn't in love with it. And Bob always used to say, if you don't love what you do, get out of it. When you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So I took the 9 days that I was in Dubai to really think about, what do I want to do next? I've accomplished this goal that I put on my goal card. What would I really love to do? Now, for me, I love to read. I'm fascinated with the mind. I just love it. And I would do it for free. It doesn't feel like work for me. So you'll remember before when I said I was thinking about this money and the idea came into my mind, build an online fitness company. Well, when I was in Dubai at 2 in the morning, the same thing happened to me. The exact same thing happened to me. And they had this idea just flash into my mind. Instead of studying Bob and this mentorship, why don't you go and teach it? Same thing happened again. I didn't know how to work with Bob. I didn't know how to get involved, but I made the decision there and then that I am going to go and work with Bob. So I woke up at 2 in the morning, and Cam, who I had the first conversation with, I messaged him and I said, how do I teach this material? We had a phone call a few days later. It's remarkable how it, it was the same as when I was making £15,000 a year. I set the goal of £15,000 a month. I accomplished that. Then I got on the phone with Cam again and I said, how do I work with Bob? He told me the procedure, how I can become a consultant. I've got to go through training so I really understand the information, so I can teach it to the best of my ability. I had to become a certified consultant. He told me the price. I did not have that money. It was a lot of money to me at the time, more money than I'd ever spent in my life. But I didn't even ask Cam how this time. I had the awareness because I'd been studying the mind that I don't need to know how I'm going to get the money. All I need to do is make a committed, irrevocable decision. And I did that. And again, I found the money. There's not been a time in my life when I've made a committed decision to do something that is not manifested. Decisions are very, very powerful. So I started training to become a consultant for Bob Proctor's team. And this, I believe, was in March of last year, 2024. I made a decision to shut down the fitness company. Everyone around me thought I was crazy. How are you going to live? The fitness company is making 5 figures consistently every month. That's stupid. But I knew my money did not come through the fitness company. My money came through the vibration that I'm operating on. So if I shut down the fitness company, nature abhors a vacuum. That opens up a space for the same amount of money that I'm programmed to earn subconsciously to come into my life. Now, not everyone really has the awareness of the mind that I have, especially in my family and the people closest to me. So I do understand why they felt that way. But I made my mind up. And I also understand when I make decisions, I tell nobody. I make the decision, I go and do it, and then I tell people. Because that way, people can't talk me out of it. You know, they mean well, but everyone's got an opinion waiting to just throw it at you, right? So I went through my training and I absolutely loved it. I became fascinated that I am now working with the man that helped me change my life. And it's been going absolutely fantastic. And a few days ago, I was rewarded with my bronze pin, which puts me in the top 1% of Bob Proctor's consultants worldwide. And sometimes high performers are really self critical. We reach a goal and we're always thinking about what's next. I really sat with that for a while, and and I was like, oh my God, Bob's passed away now, but he would be so flipping proud of me for what I have done, because there's no better material than the material that I teach. So that's an insight to where I am today. I never really thought about working with Bob. Bob changed my life, and I thought, how did this happen? And I remember Bob in my head saying, what would you love to do? And I would love, well, I did want to just study the mind all day and talk about the mind and talk about the subconscious mind, the conscious, our imagination, how we can use our mind to attract the things that we want into our lives. I love it. And it just flashed into my mind. Instead of working on a mentorship with Bob, go and work with Bob, create your own mentorship, and help people get the freedom that you've got, Joel. And ever since then, I've done it. And I mean, the last 12 months has been a roller coaster. It's been amazing. There's been ups, there's been downs, but I have managed to help so many people. So, yeah, that's a bit about my journey and where I am today. And now my goal is even bigger. My goal for this year is to help 150 people with this material. And that's why I'm here right now, helping you. That's why I created the YouTube channel, because I know the more I serve, the more I give. It is a universal law that I must receive. I mean, if I could put what I know and put my mentorship into a syringe and go up to every single person in the world and stab them in the ass and give it them, I would, because it's changed my life and it will change your life. Thinking into results, the mentorship that I take people through was designed by Bob. And I have had huge success in my life through it. And a lot of my clients have as well. It's absolutely incredible when you raise your awareness, what happens. I always say sometimes, I was not meant to be here. I told you about my upbringing. Most people get sectioned, go through a psychotic episode, and are never the same again. I'm even better because I made the right decisions and the right steps when I got out of hospital. I started studying the mind. I stayed away from distractions. I stayed away from alcohol, away from drugs, and I had a goal. I had something to get up in the morning and work towards. And I really believe that is why a lot of the population are suffering with depression. They're just lost. They wake up and they don't know what to do. They've got no direction. They've got no purpose. Once you have a goal and you make a decision, I am going to do whatever it takes to reach this goal, it will happen every single time with every single person. And if you have been giving up on yourself, if the old me sounds like you right now, where you're working hard, you feel like you're doing all the right things, you know about the subconscious mind, you know about the laws of the universe, but your income is not changing, your results are not changing, then you've got to be honest with yourself and say, look, if I keep doing what I'm doing, then what's going to change? Maybe I do need help. Maybe I do need the right direction. When you get the right direction, things start to change really fast. And I am saying that from factual data on what happened to me. I was stuck for 8 years. Once I got the right direction, once I learned how to apply what I already knew, my income skyrocketed. And if you really want to increase your income, go and download my free 10K plus month breakthrough blueprint. If you apply what is in that blueprint, your financial situation will improve. But there's one thing that I've learned from them 8 years where nothing changed for me. All I was doing was gathering information, reading books, and I thought that was the way. It's not. Gathering information will do nothing but get you more frustrated because you know more, but your results are not changing. It's the application that's going to get you the results. I hope you enjoyed this insight into my story. If this just helps one of you, then my heart is full. And no matter how dark it seems at the moment, there is a way out. There's always a way. So don't give up. Reach out to me if you want help. And it would be my pleasure to serve you in the best way that I can. Just keep going, keep being persistent, and never stop. I'm Joel McLeod, and you have an amazing day.